the matter of Israel-Palestine.
Yes. You want me to comment on that?
I do. I'm wondering, I'm wondering, for example, I mean, I imagine you would absolutely have stood by his view
Yes.
that there should be no more settlements
Absolutely.
built in Palestinian territory.
I was very excited when President Obama went to Cairo and said that a policy of my nation and my government is no more Israeli settlements in Palestine. And this sent a wave of hope and aspirations for the Palestinians finally to get some basic political and human rights. And of course, it was rejected in its totality by the Netanyahu regime. And then I was also encouraged this past May when President Obama repeated the policy that all his predecessors have had since Israel was a nation, since 1967 at least, that Israel should withdraw from the occupied territories except for the 1967 borders modified. And apparently he's abandoned that as well. Now, when he made his recent speech in the United Nations, there was no mention of 67 borders. And I think this...
So what do you think is happening?
I think it's the political pressures within our country from the supporters of Israel. And I'm a supporter of Israel, I might add to say. My hope, my number one international dream and prayer has been to bring peace to Israel. I was involved in the so-called Geneva Accords. In fact, I was involved in the negotiations between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and I made the keynote speech at Geneva when it was announced. And it called for leaving half of the Israelis settlers in Palestine in exchange for some property of Israel that would go to the Palestinians to modify the borders. And when I was speaking on the last time, I had a long discussion with Ariel Sharon, very conservative prime minister, as you know. Sharon had accepted that premise. In fact, he pointed out to me a very intriguing idea. He said, why doesn't Israel give to the Palestinians a land corridor between Gaza and the West Bank, which is about 36 miles, and let them build on that corridor a railroad and a highway. It'll be owned by the Palestinians as a land swap, and the Israelis will maintain security. And when the Israelis want to go from one part of the Negev desert to another, they would just go under a tunnel or over a bridge and let the Palestinians have that land. So all of the predecessors of Netanyahu have accepted the premise that Israel must give up the occupied territories in order to have peace. This is what everybody knows as a two-state solution. Netanyahu and Lieberman and others are now moving inevitably, apparently to me, to a one-state solution, where there's only going to be one nation between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, controlled ostensibly by the Jews, the Israelis. But this can't last.
A state about which you dared to conjure the word apartheid.
That's the prospect. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. So you're either going to have, right now there are a majority of non-Jews in that one state, but they're not a majority of non-Jewish voters yet because the Palestinians are younger in age. But it's just a few years before there'll be a majority of non-Jews in that one state area. And Israel will be faced with an impossible choice. Either have part of their citizens deprived of a right of citizenship, that is the non-Jews, or to let the Arabs outvote the Jews in their own country. So you can see this is inevitably moving toward a tragedy, in my opinion, for Israel. But apparently that's what Netanyahu is trying to do.
There is another side to the equation, and that, of course, is the preparedness by Hamas and others
Yes.
to accept the right of Israel to exist.
They're all prepared to do that. The Carter Center is one of the few organizations in the world that deals with all the aspects of the peace process in the Middle East, with Israel, with Lebanon, with Jordan, with Syria, with Egypt, and with Hamas, and also with Fatah, of course. And all of the Arab countries, as you know, have made the so-called Arab peace proposal to recognize Israel diplomatically and an equal trading partner if Israel will just do what I just said, withdraw basically to the 67 borders. And Hamas leadership have announced publicly and told me privately that they would accept Israel's existence within the 67 borders modified by negotiation. They've also said that they would anoint Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the PLO, to be their representative negotiator. And they will accept any deal negotiated by Abbas with Israel provided the Palestinians have a right to vote on it in a referendum and approve the results of the negotiations. So I think there's adequate flexibility on the Arab side, and in the past there has been flexibility on the Israeli side. Now apparently that flexibility is gone.